So people that follow my channel know, and people that don't follow my channel, now you know, I like to tinker with guitars and modify them and different things of that nature. So I had some parts left over from my previous project, and I needed something to do with them. Well, my original goal with my Telecaster project was I wanted a dual humbucker Telecaster. I had all these parts left over from it, and I found that I really liked the tone of a single coil pickup Telecaster. So I figured, alright, why not? So I found a Candy Apple Red body, which I thought was kind of cool because I like the color, and you can't just buy a run-of-the-mill Telecaster in that color, at least from Fender. And I kept an eye on a roasted maple neck with a roasted maple fretboard. Eventually the body and the neck came down in price for a limited time, and I figured now's as good as time as any to pull the trigger on these. So I had my body and my neck on the way, but I still needed a few other things. I needed string ferrules, strap buttons, and an output jack cup. I don't know if you call it a cup or whatever on a Telecaster, but you know what I mean. So I had it in my head that I wanted to do the Candy Apple Red body, the roasted maple neck, and I was thinking black black pickguard. So I ordered a pickguard for it. Everything is technically Fender genuine parts except for the output jack and the cup. Those I went with Vintage Forge again, which was who made the output jack boat for the black Strat that I did. I went through various avenues on Reverb and eBay, basically nobody in particular other than the Stratosphere and Sport High Tech and the Gear Tree. Those are my three kind of go-to vendors on there for this type of stuff. So I started with the bridge. I got the bridge in. It didn't really have to fiddle with it. It direct fit. And then I got the pickguard located, taped it down, center punched the locations for the screws and drilled for the screws. And then I had to do the wiring, which I kind of screwed myself because I clipped the wires when I pulled all this stuff out of the white Telecaster. And I didn't leave enough because, well, just the different routing kind of hampered that. The neck pickup actually doesn't fit super good in there. I'm probably going to have to either go back and route that a little deeper or find a different solution for it. But for now, it's working with the setup that I have. I got the proper clearance between the neck pickup and the strings, but it was a bit of a struggle at first. I also probably should have just direct mounted the pickup to the body, but I didn't think of that at the time, which I guess is another solution, but then the holes in the pickguard would bug me, so I kind of want to just leave the pickup mounted in the pickguard for now. I had to solder some extra wire onto the existing wires so I could get everything to connect, because, you know, not everything always ends up easy. There's always one struggle with every project that I do, but I got everything wired up and everything worked, so that was really the important part. Nobody's gonna see inside of it while I'm playing it, so it doesn't matter if there's a couple unions in there. And I know the big thing is not to use electrical tape. People say not to use electrical tape on this stuff for some reason, but I used electrical tape because I didn't have any shrink tubing and I didn't feel like going to get any. But once I got that all done, it was time to button her up. So I got the pickguard back on there, screwed everything down. Bridge was secure, control plate was secure. I did have to shave around the cutout in the pickguard for the control plate to kind of gel together. Nothing major, but just something that had to be done. But it all, after fiddling around with it, it all went back together the way it was supposed to, so that was a plus. I then moved on to having to install the tuners, which just regular Fender tuners. I didn't go with locking tuners this time because I had like 3 sets of these things laying around, so I figured that was probably the easiest route to go, and it saved me some money not having to buy some tuners. They dropped right in because the neck's already got the headstock's already drilled for the tuners, and there's really nothing to it, so I mean that's pretty simple. Now the downside to using the regular Fender tuners is I'm going to have to put a string tree on there, which I wasn't 100% sure which way I was going to go on that, but I ended up using a Graphtec string tree that I had lying around from a guitar that I dismantled, and I figured, we'll use that there. It's not, I guess, maybe as classy looking as like a roller tree or anything like that, because you just got this like white string tree on your headstock, but it kind of works because it gels with the nut, which I didn't change the nut, it's just the nut that comes on the guitar. So that's just kind of how that ended up going. Now I planned on using this for open C tuning because there's certain clean sounds I like that come out of a Telecaster, and probably the one thing that I like, that I do the most clean tones with, is open C, because just the way everything kind of works together in that tuning. So I went with the Ernie Ball heavy bottom skinny tops because that just works the best. I tried the I think they're beefy bottoms skinny tops, and I didn't really like them as much as the heavy bottoms. So this just, this is my go-to string gauge for this tuning, and that's what I went with. Now it works fine for everything that's on this guitar, except for the fact that when you buy these Fender replacement necks, you will have to file the nut slots. And that's the one thing, I'm about bargains and finding stuff at a decent price, but I will say, probably without a shadow of a doubt, the one thing you should not cheap out on is files, or anything that has to do with parts of the guitar that seriously impact how it plays. I tried using cheaper nut files in the past, and it just didn't pan out. So if you can, just shell out the money. There's some that you can find on Amazon through Japanese manufacturers. I went with StewMac because normally if I order stuff from them, I get it within like a day or two. So that's the one thing I would say you should probably spend the money on is nut files, and actually files in general, even fret files. Which, speaking of fret files, one thing that was nice about this is I didn't have to do anything to the frets on this neck. They were level, crowning was good, the fret ends were nice. Actually, as much as I hate to say it, the neck's made in Mexico, and the fret ends on it were nicer than most of the fret ends on the actual made in Mexico guitars that I have. I don't know if they put a little bit more into these because they don't have to put them on a guitar, or what the deal is, but no sharp edges, no sprout or anything like that. And I know with a roasted maple neck you don't have as much susceptibility to humidity changes and things like that, so maybe that also has something to do with it. I don't know. But I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's they put more effort into it, or if it's the fact that it's a roasted maple neck. But it looks awesome, so I don't care, and it feels good. This is the slotting process. I figured out how deep I needed to go, and I used feeler gauges up against the nut. I used a obviously I don't have any hair, but the nice thing about having a daughter is I could take her hair ties. I used a hair tie to keep the feeler gauges in place. I just put one of the empty string packs behind the feeler gauges so I don't scuff the frets with the file, and I taped off the headstock right at the end of where it meets the nut, so it doesn't, if I slipped, I didn't scrape up the headstock. Just basic things to keep everything nice and protected. And then I just filed until I got to the point where the file was touching the feeler gauge, and it worked out pretty good. When I strung it up and set the action and everything at the bridge, it played really well. So that's probably how, I don't know if that's the right way to do it. There's numerous different ways to do different things when it comes to this stuff, but that's probably my method now. Not gonna lie, drilling holes is always kind of nerve-wracking. In the first couple test guitars that I did to kind of get a feel for this, they were cheap, thank God. Where I did drill through the headstock a couple times, like all the way through the headstock, putting string trees on and drilling for tuners, and hell, I've had instances where I didn't drill the hole big enough and then broke off the screw for the string tree. So make sure you use the right size drill bit, and I just use a little bit of painter's tape on the bit itself so I know how deep to go. That's just a good visual aid instead of trying to wing it. But, you know, it's just one of those things that it's not difficult, but it's easy to mess up if you're in a hurry or you're just not paying attention. So it's as simple as a thing as putting a string tree on might seem. Just take that extra moment to be cautious with it. But everything's where it needs to be, and it's time to string it up or tune it up and start setting it up. So I started with the relief, and I go with 10,000ths of an inch, or if you use metric like I do, it's 2500ths of a millimeter, and that's the official Fender recommendation. I'm kind of struggling with getting the neck pickup height correct. I have little gauges, but I come back to that. It's low enough that I can set the action on the guitar. And again, it's the same thing that Fender recommends if you're using a 9.5 to 12-inch radius fretboard. It's 4/64ths of an inch all the way across, or 1.6 millimeters is what I use. And I mean, it plays fine. I'm sure there's probably shredders out there that would prefer their action a little lower, but for me, that's a nice little sweep. I could even probably go up a little bit, maybe to like 1.8, but this feels good and it works for me. I'm kind of working on my touch to make it a little lighter, but I may have to, like I said, make adjustments down the road because I do kind of have a heavy touch. But it's working out, and like I said, I mean, that's what Fender says it should be, so it's just the easiest thing to go with, or at least a good starting point. And now we're on to actually doing the pickup height. And I have this little gauge set that I got from Stu Mac. It works pretty good. Just run it under the string, press down on the last fret, and just run it under the string, and if it touches, then you're too high. If it doesn't touch, you're too low. Admittedly, this is something that I didn't really pay attention to in the past. I just adjusted them as needed to make the guitar sound good. But now that I'm actually, trying to set my guitars up properly, it's something that I've been going off of the manufacturer's specs to make sure that the pickups are set correctly. And then if I gotta lower them or whatever for whatever reason, then I will. But it's actually been working out pretty well. I got a few that I have to go back through and do this too, but I mean, it's at least a good starting point. I forgot to mention when I was talking about setting the action, I did not shim this neck. Just worth noting, because why not? While setting the intonation, one thing I probably should have done, because I did have to crank some of these back a little bit, is I should have measured it beforehand and just kind of roughed it out before I strung it up, and it probably would have saved me some time here, but I didn't because I didn't think about it till I was well into the process here. So next time I'll probably just measure from the 12th fret to 1275 back to the saddle and preset them, and then hopefully I won't have to make such drastic adjustments to the saddles in the future when I do stuff like this. But that's part of the process, is you make little mistakes or even big mistakes and you learn from them. But all in all, this process was relatively painless, especially since I didn't have to do anything to the fret ends or anything like that, like I did on the last project, or the project before that, the Black Strat. So I mean, outside of having to really fiddle with the neck pickup to get it to sit low enough to not fret out against the strings, and just the wiring in general, having to solder extra wire on there. I mean, it's an inconvenience, but it wasn't like a major or a major pothole on the road or anything like that. It just kind of slowed me down. So instead of being able to do this in like a day, it took me 2 days. But it turned out really well, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I enjoy it that way. The guitar's uniquely mine, and it's kind of more rewarding when you put this much effort into, and it wasn't even really that much effort into putting it together and making it yours. But in the end, I came in far under what a Player Series Telecaster would cost, and I got a pretty cool guitar out of the deal. So now comes the important stuff. So the body and the neck, if you would buy these new at regular list prices, the body would be $249.99 US. The neck would be $299.99 US. So what? 3, 4, 5, $550 right there. The other parts, like I said, were left over from my white Telecaster. I paid like $8 for the output jack cup, and I paid like $6 for the Ferrules, and the Pickguard came in around $15. So all in all, that's under $600. I don't feel like mathing right now. Actually, even less than that, because like I said, I got the body on sale and the neck on sale, so far less than what you would pay for a current Player Series Telecaster, and actually even less than what you would have paid before the prices went up this year. So all in all, that was a pretty good win. Granted, they don't always come in under like this does, but it depends what kind of options you want on the instrument and stuff like that. Once you start throwing, like in my case, once I start throwing active electronics in there and stuff like that and locking tuners, then yeah, the price is probably a little bit more than what you would buy, but it depends like where you start at. So it's kind of a balancing act, trying to do it and keep it reasonably priced, because at some point it's like, well, yes, it's still less than a custom shop guitar, but where do you draw the line in the sand of how much you're going to spend to upgrade the guitar that you bought? But the important part now, though, I'm sure, is people were probably screaming at me to shut up and play, so Alright, so that's it for my Candy Apple Red Fender Telecaster. As always, guys, if you could rate, comment, subscribe. Every little bit helps out as far as interactions goes, and lets me know, you know, your comments let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, what I need to improve on, so, you know, can only get better, right? Right. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.